Lifestyle inflation is one of the most subtle financial traps because it doesn't feel like a mistake while it's happening. It feels like progress. You start earning more, and naturally you begin upgrading parts of your life that once felt out of reach. Maybe you move into a better place, start ordering food more often, upgrade your phone sooner than necessary, or justify small conveniences that make life easier. None of these decisions seem irresponsible on their own. In fact, they often feel deserved. After all, if you're working harder and earning more, why shouldn't your lifestyle reflect that? The problem is that these upgrades don't stay upgrades for long. They quickly become your new baseline. What once felt like a luxury becomes something you expect, something you rely on, and once that shift happens, your expenses quietly rise to match your income. The extra money that once had the potential to build long-term wealth gets absorbed into maintaining a more expensive version of your daily life. At that point, even though your income has increased, your financial position hasn't meaningfully changed. You're still operating with the same margin, the same pressure, just at a higher level. And because of that, you don't feel any richer. You just feel like you're keeping up with a slightly more expensive routine. What makes lifestyle inflation particularly dangerous is how gradual it is. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a series of small decisions made over time. Each one feels justified, each one feels insignificant. But collectively, they create a situation where your cost of living expands just as fast as your ability to afford it. At the same time, comparison adds another layer to the problem. No matter how much you improve your situation, there will always be someone ahead of you. Someone with a nicer car, a bigger house, more expensive vacations, or a lifestyle that appears more exciting, and because of how visible other people's lives have become, especially online, you're constantly exposed to these comparisons whether you intend to be or not. The issue is that you're not comparing full realities. You're comparing your everyday experience to curated highlights. You see the results of other people's spending, but not the context behind it. You don't see their debt, their stress, or the trade-offs they had to make, but your brain fills in the gaps anyway, assuming that what you're seeing represents a higher level of success that creates a moving target. As soon as you reach one level, your attention shifts to the next. What once felt like success now feels average because your reference point has changed. Instead of recognizing your progress, you normalize it and start chasing something further away. This combination of lifestyle inflation and comparison creates a loop. You earn more, you spend more, you see others who appear to have more, and then you feel like you need to keep up. So you push for higher income, not necessarily to improve your financial stability, but to support a lifestyle that keeps expanding. And because the goalpost is always moving, the feeling of enough never arrives. Another layer to this is identity. As your income grows, your sense of identity often starts to shift along with it. You begin to associate certain purchases or experiences with who you are or who you believe you should be. Maybe it's dressing a certain way, living in a certain area, or participating in activities that signal success. These choices aren't just about comfort anymore. They become tied to how you see yourself and how you want to be seen by others. That makes it even harder to resist lifestyle inflation because cutting back can feel like losing status or stepping backward. Even if the financial decision makes sense, it can feel emotionally uncomfortable. So instead of optimizing for long-term security, you optimize for maintaining a certain image. At the same time, the pressure of comparison doesn't just come from strangers. It often comes from people in your immediate environment. Friends, coworkers, and peers who are at a similar stage in life can influence what feels normal. If everyone around you is upgrading their lifestyle, it raises the standard of what you think you should be doing. So even if your situation is objectively strong, it can feel like you're behind simply because of the environment you're in. This is how someone can go from feeling excited about a raise to feeling financially stretched within a short period of time. Not because they made a single bad decision, but because their expectations and expenses adjusted faster than their sense of progress. And the most interesting part is that none of this requires reckless behavior. You don't have to overspend dramatically or make obvious mistakes. You just have to follow the natural tendency to improve your lifestyle in line with your income and compare yourself to people who appear to be doing slightly better. That's enough to erase the emotional impact of earning more over time. This creates a situation where your financial life becomes more complex, but not necessarily more secure. You have more income flowing in, but you also have more obligations, more fixed costs, and less flexibility. And because of that, you may actually feel more pressure than you did when you were earning less. This is where the disconnect becomes clear. On the surface, everything looks better, but internally it doesn't feel that way. Breaking out of this pattern requires awareness more than anything else. It's not about eliminating all upgrades or refusing to enjoy your money. It's about being intentional with how much of your increased income actually improves your long-term position versus how much simply maintains a higher level of spending. Because without that awareness, the default outcome is predictable. Your lifestyle expands, your comparisons increase, and the feeling of being rich stays just out of reach. Most people assume that feeling rich is directly tied to how much money they make, but that assumption breaks down quickly when you look at how people actually experience their finances. There are individuals earning high incomes who constantly feel stressed, restricted, and uncertain, and there are others earning far less who feel stable, in control, and confident about their future. The difference isn't just the number coming in every month, it's the level of control they have over their money and the sense of security that comes with it. Control starts with something simple but often overlooked: the gap between what you earn and what you spend. When that gap is wide, you have room to breathe. You can handle unexpected expenses without panic, make decisions without constantly checking your balance, and think beyond the next paycheck. That space creates a sense of calm that people often associate with being rich, even if the actual income isn't extraordinary. On the other hand, when your income is high but your expenses are just as high, that gap disappears. You might be earning more than you ever have, but if most of it is already committed to bills, payments, and obligations, you're left with very little flexibility. And without flexibility, there's no real sense of control. You're not directing your money, you're reacting to it. That lack of control shows up in subtle ways. It shows up when an unexpected expense feels like a disruption instead of a minor inconvenience. It shows up when you hesitate before making small purchases, not because they're unaffordable, but because you're unsure how they fit into everything else. It shows up when you feel tied to your current level of income because your lifestyle depends on it. That's not what people imagine when they think about being rich. Security builds on top of control. It's not just about having extra money in a given month. It's about knowing that your financial situation is stable over time. That stability comes from things like savings, investments, and low dependency on any single source of income. When you have those elements in place, your financial life becomes less fragile. You're not constantly worried about what could go wrong because you've already prepared for it. Without that security, even a high income can feel temporary. You might be doing well right now, but there's always a lingering question of what happens if something changes. If your income drops, if your expenses increase, if something unexpected happens, how quickly would things fall apart? That uncertainty prevents you from ever fully relaxing into your situation. Another important factor is time. Money and time are closely connected, but they don't always move in the same direction. It's possible to earn more money by giving up more of your time, your energy, and your flexibility. In those cases, your financial situation improves on paper, but your overall sense of freedom doesn't. When your schedule is completely tied to maintaining your income, it can feel like you're trading one form of pressure for another. You have more money, but less control over how you live your life. And because of that, the emotional benefit of earning more gets diluted. Real financial control includes having options. The option to take a break, the option to change direction, the option to say no without immediate consequences. Those options don't come from income alone. They come from how that income has been managed over time. There's also a psychological component to control. When you know exactly where your money is going, when you understand your financial situation clearly, and when you have a plan for the future, it reduces uncertainty. That clarity creates confidence. You're not guessing, you're not hoping, you're making decisions based on a clear understanding of your position. Without that clarity, even a strong financial situation can feel unstable. If you don't know how much you're saving, how much you're investing, or how your money is working for you, it's difficult to feel in control of it. And then there's the role of consistency. Security isn't built through occasional large decisions, it's built through repeated small ones. Regular saving, consistent investing, and disciplined spending create a foundation that strengthens over time. That foundation is what allows your financial situation to improve in a way that feels durable, not temporary. When those habits are in place, your money starts working independently of your day-to-day effort. That's when things begin to shift. Your financial progress becomes less dependent on constant input and more driven by systems you've already set up. At that point, the feeling of being rich starts to emerge, not because of a sudden increase in income, but because of a gradual increase in stability and control. Another aspect that often gets overlooked is how little it actually takes to feel secure once your basic needs and a reasonable level of comfort are met. Beyond a certain point, additional income doesn't significantly increase your sense of well-being unless it improves your control or reduces your stress. If it doesn't do either of those things, it's just a bigger number with the same underlying experience. This is why some people can double their income and still feel exactly the same. If their expenses rise alongside their earnings, if their obligations increase, and if their financial structure doesn't improve, then nothing fundamental has changed. The numbers are different, but the experience isn't. In contrast, someone who focuses on building control and security can experience a noticeable shift even without a dramatic increase in income. By maintaining a healthy gap between earnings and expenses, building a safety net, and investing consistently, they create a financial environment that feels stable and predictable. That predictability is what allows them to think long-term. Instead of worrying about immediate pressures, they can focus on future goals, opportunities, and choices. And that shift in perspective changes how they experience their finances on a daily basis. Ultimately, the feeling of being rich comes from knowing that your financial life is working for you, not against you. It comes from having enough control to make decisions without constant stress and enough security to handle uncertainty without fear. Without those elements, income alone isn't enough to create that feeling, no matter how high it goes.